cognitive distortions will take over. They make us think that the worst is going to happen, and then they paralyze us to inactivity. And then comes the shame, the guilt, and the frustration because we're not able to do the things that we want to do because we're too afraid or anxious. Welcome to Therapy Explained. My name is Deniss. I'm the therapist of color for people of color and your very own mental health cheerleader. Today's video is part of our anxiety series in which we've been covering all things anxiety. We've also been diving in deep into interventions and coping skills as well as information that will be helpful for you as you're learning to manage your anxiety. To check those out and to make sure that you don't miss any, make sure to subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you're interested in learning more about how to manage your own mental health and particularly anxiety. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. What are cognitive distortions? Cognitive distortions are, as the name suggests, negative thoughts. Oftentimes they're also called anxious thoughts because they are very closely connected to our anxiety. They can also be triggered by past traumas. So if you've had a negative experience or a traumatic experience, your body will then start to predict and expect the worst thing to happen, and it will think negatively about the world and others based on the experiences that you have had. So oftentimes these things are rooted in real experiences and real fears. This can sometimes also be rooted in negative core beliefs about ourselves, which I will cover as we go on throughout this video. So let's talk about what types of cognitive distortions exist, and then we'll jump into how to manage them. There are very many types of cognitive distortions, but I want to talk to you about the most common ones that I've seen in my practice. The first one is something that probably stood out to you as I was talking about what cognitive distortions are, which is catastrophizing. So immediately going to the worst case scenario, the worst thing that can happen. Getting contacted by your boss and assuming that the worst thing is going to happen, like you're going to get fired or you're going to get in trouble. Getting a message from a partner or a friend and thinking they're breaking up with me, they don't want to talk to me anymore. Being introduced into a new situation and thinking that you're going to be ridiculed, that you're going to make a fool of yourself. So again, just negative thoughts, expecting the worst to happen. Another very common negative thought that I see a lot of the time is mind reading and or fortune telling. So telling yourself, I know exactly what this person is going to say, I know what they're going to think, I know how they're going to react. This can be when we need to have conversations with people around us, and then we just say, well, I can't tell them this because I know exactly what they're going to say. If I tell my boss I need days, I know they're going to say no. If I tell my partner that I have a particular need, they'll leave me. So again, it's thinking that you know what people are going to say and what people are going to think. And the truth is, we actually don't. To be fair, again, sometimes these fears and thoughts come from very real experiences that you've had in the past. If we know our friends and family, we have a pretty good idea of how they're going to react. But again, we don't actually know until we try. Another very common one is black and white thinking and all or nothing. And this is when we think, again, I'm either the best in a room or I'm the worst. If I'm not good at this particular task, there's no point in doing it. You're either my best friend or we are enemies. So it's this all or nothing, black and white, having a really difficult time staying in the middle. The next very common cognitive distortion that I often see is filtering. So depending on the experiences that you've had, you're going to pick out the ones that are going to prove your core belief correct. If you don't think that you are a worthy or lovable person, if you don't think you're an intelligent person, you're going to start to pick out the incidents and experiences that you've had that are going to prove that wrong. And connected and very much like in the black and white thinking, because a lot of these cognitive distortions, if you have one, you most likely have quite a few of them, they're going to pair up. And your black and white thinking and filtering will say, because I've had 1, 2, 3 negative experiences, then no one is worth giving my time to. There is no point in me doing this because I've had a few negative experiences. Another pretty common cognitive distortion that I see, and again, a lot of these tend to be connected, are generalizing statements. So very similar to this black and white and filtering. If I have one job interview and I don't get it, I'm never going to get any job. Again, this is kind of like catastrophizing, thinking I'm never going to be employed, no one's going to like me. So as you're listening to this, remember there's so many cognitive distortions, and they do also tend to kind of work together because they're all triggered by the same thing: our anxieties, our fears, and yes, sometimes rooted on real experiences and real fears, as well as real and unfortunately pretty severe negative beliefs about ourselves. So again, if you have low self-esteem and don't think highly of yourself, it'll be really hard to try to challenge some of these cognitive distortions. Before I jump into what we can do to manage them, you're probably asking yourself, why do I have these in the first place? Why would I do this to myself? All these negative thoughts. The truth is that a lot of the times it's because our brain is trying to protect us. As I've mentioned, they're rooted on actual experiences that we've had. It's our brain trying to say, you know what, the last time that we were here, it didn't work out well. We don't want to actually put ourselves in uncomfortable positions, whether that's physically or emotionally uncomfortable. Why would our brain want us to go there? So it will do things to try to keep us safe. Unfortunately, sometimes it does it a little bit too much, and we end up emotionally uncomfortable anyway if we're having negative thoughts about ourselves or negative thoughts about others and the world around us. So I do want to point out, this is your brain trying to protect you. And again, most of the time, it's also rooted on real experiences that you've had. But in the long run, it's not helpful for us because we are stopping ourselves from being open to experiences and to other people. And then it feeds into itself this shame, guilt, and frustration along with the anxiety. So now that we know what cognitive distortions are, the different types, why we might be having them, let's talk about what we can do to help us manage them. Of course, as always, therapy is my favorite thing to recommend, particularly with anxiety, because when you have a therapist who knows you, who gets to know you, they will be able to hold you accountable. They will help you develop the vocabulary, like teaching you what kind of cognitive distortions you might be having, and they will help you develop coping skills that are tailored to your needs to manage them better. But again, as always, the reason I make these videos is because I understand that not everybody has access to this. So let's talk about tangible things that you can do to help you manage them outside of therapy. So some of the things that are very, very helpful, and the very first thing that you need to learn in order to be able to manage them is to notice that they're happening. Now, we went over what they were and the different types, so I would like for you to write them down for yourself. Black and white thinking, catastrophizing, filtering, generalizing. Write them down, and then as you're having negative thoughts or as you're feeling anxious, try to identify and name them. Oh, this is catastrophizing. This is black and white thinking. Name it as it's happening, because if you're not noticing that they're happening, you can't actually manage them. So some experiments and homeworks that I tend to assign to my patients when we're working on cognitive distortions is to keep a journal. Write down, either in the moment as it's happening on your phone or on a journal, the thoughts that you're having. Just write them down. Just whatever's going on in your head, write it down. It can be really striking to see the kinds of thoughts and the kinds of things that you're telling yourself. It can also be helpful to do it at the end of the day so that you don't have to be doing it throughout the day if that sounds like a little bit too much, or at the end of the week. And again, this is why therapy is so helpful, because you are checking in weekly with someone about what your thought patterns have been. But keeping track of them is number one, is learning how to identify them and how to name them. From there, we want to learn how to manage by reframing and by challenging them. So reframing looks like this: allowing yourself to limit the incident and to what's happened to you to that moment. If you didn't get a job, for example, I didn't get this job. Avoid generalizing and try to keep yourself mindful of, in this moment, this is what I'm feeling. If someone's hurt my feelings, if someone's broken up with me, if I've been fired in this moment. This particular incident, this particular situation didn't work out for me right now. So we really want to stick to this moment and reframing. The next is actually challenge that thought directly by telling ourselves, I don't actually know what's going to happen. I actually have no control over what other people are thinking and saying about me. I don't actually know that everyone all the time is going to be not trustworthy or is going to disappoint me. So again, directly challenging this, and if you can, fact checking yourself. Is it true actually that I can't trust anybody? Because if I can think of at least one example that that's not true, that will help me challenge this particular thought. So reframing and directly challenging this thought can also be really helpful. And lastly, even if we learn how to identify and challenge these thoughts, we're still probably going to feel a little bit anxious and emotionally uncomfortable. So this is where your coping skills come in. Now I have a whole video on this, so make sure that you check it out, but there is a whole reason why I talk about coping skills. They are key. They are going to help you throughout your mental health and your treatment all the time. Your coping skills can help ground you. So if you're doing meditation and yoga, if you're doing journaling, puzzling, coloring, going for walks, these are all really good grounding skills that are going to help your body relax. Because remember, in the video we talked about how anxiety tends to make our body work harder and faster than it needs to, and relaxing is key. But other coping skills like the thought challenging, like going for runs, like listening to music, like reading, will also help us redirect our thoughts and energy into more productive and positive activities to help our body feel more soothed and to help us disengage from negative thought patterns. So coping skills are key. Engaging them, please. So let's review before we go. Number 1, cognitive distortions are negative thoughts that are triggered by anxiety and oftentimes rooted in real experiences like traumatic incidents or just negative past experiences, as well as negative core beliefs. There are an array of cognitive distortions, but there are a few common ones that I have reviewed with you and mentioned to you throughout this video. But the best way to learn how to manage them is to learn the vocabulary, which we've reviewed today, naming them as cognitive distortions. And then from there, once you know that they're happening, you can actually start reframing and challenging them. And then lastly, coping skills are key. Learning to self-soothe by engaging in a grounding coping tool, or alternatively any other coping tool that's going to help you redirect your thoughts and energy into something more productive and healthy for your own mental and emotional well-being. Progress does require practice, so if you give any of these tips, tools, or ideas a try, please make sure to comment down below and let me know. Or if there's something that you already do that is helping you, please share it with us. Remember, we are a community and we're constantly learning from each other, so let us learn from you. As always, your cheat sheet is already available to you on Instagram, so make sure to hop on over there to access it. But before you do, please give this video some love in whatever way feels authentic to you. Any comment, like, or subscription helps spread the word, and it helps increase access to free information about mental health to other people as well. Thank you again for watching this video. And as always, I'm always cheering for you.